Chapter 3. A Death. When I had taken a shower and dressed, I felt calmer, and I was ready to tell Phillida all about the dolphin and the disagreeable Mr. Gale. I went out onto the terrace, but she wasn't there. Miranda and her mother weren't there either. Then I heard the door from the kitchen open, and my sister came into the living room. "Lucy, is that you?" she called. "I'm out here," I replied, and I went towards the French windows which led into the living room. One look at her face made me forget everything. "Phil, what's the matter? You look terrible." "Something awful has happened. Poor Maria's boy has been drowned. Spiro, the boy I told you about at breakfast." "Phil, how terrible. But how? When?" "Last night. He was out with Godfrey on the boat. You know, Godfrey Manning. And there was an accident. Spiro fell over the side of the boat and was drowned. Godfrey's come over to tell us, and I've just told Maria and Miranda. I've sent them home now." She put a hand to her head. "Lucy, it was so awful. Godfrey's still here. Come and meet him." We went through into the living room. At the far end, there was a man with his back to us. He was pouring himself a drink. When we came in, he turned. He was tall and toughly built, with brown hair made lighter by the sun, a narrow, clever face, and tired grey eyes. He was probably about 35 years of age. Phillida introduced us, but he was really more interested in her than in me. "You've told them?" he said. "Was it very bad?" "Worse than bad." "Of course. Look, Phil, do you think I should go and talk to them now?" "No, wait. Just at the moment, I don't think Maria can believe that Spiro's dead." Phillida looked up at him. "Godfrey," she said. "I suppose there's no doubt, is there? He really is dead." "Well, that's it, you see. That's why I didn't come here immediately. I've been phoning. I was trying to discover if his body had been found. But I'm sure he can't be alive. I saw him go over the side." "What happened?" I asked. "Do you know?" said Godfrey. "I'm still not really sure. I'm beginning to wonder just how much I really do remember. I'm sorry." "Perhaps you don't want to talk about it. I shouldn't have asked," I said. "It's all right. I've already talked to the police, and I've told Phil about it. The worst thing is that I'll have to talk to the boy's mother." He looked at me directly for the first time. "You hadn't met Spiro?" he asked. "I only arrived last night, but Phil told me about him." Godfrey continued. "I came here last year, and he's worked for me since then. He was a clever mechanic. He knew everything about boats. You know I'm writing a book, and I need a lot of photographs for it. Well, Spiro helped me with those too. In fact, I used him in some of them." He paused for a moment, and then the tired grey eyes came back to me. I'd been taking some photographs at night, and I wanted to get some of the sun when it rose over the mountains with the snow still on them. Spiro and I took my boat out last night. There was some wind, but nothing to worry about. The sea wasn't really rough. I was below in the cabin, working on my camera, and suddenly the engine stopped. I went up on deck to see what had happened. Spiro was hanging over the side at the back of the boat. He was trying to find out what was wrong. I think I called to him to be careful, but just then the wind caught the boat and it swung over violently. Spiro was holding the rail, but it was wet and slippery, and he lost his hold on it. He tried to catch it again, but missed, and went over the side. By the time I reached the back of the boat, I couldn't even see him. He had disappeared. He couldn't swim? I asked. Oh, yes, but it was very dark, and the boat was drifting fast. The wind was stronger by then, you see. I shouted again and again, but there was no reply. In the end, I managed to start the engine, and I searched for Spiro for 2 hours, but it was no good. I couldn't find him. You did all you could, said Phillida sadly. Yes, but because I didn't find his body, perhaps his mother will hope that he'll come back. If he got as far as Albania, she could wait for years to discover what happened. Just as she did with his father, I added. He stared at me. His father. I forgot that. Poor woman. And it's worse, because Spiro wasn't expecting to go out with me last night. I only asked him at the last minute. Phillida looked thoughtful. Look, Godfrey, she said. When you go home, you'd better take these photographs with you. It wouldn't be very good for Maria to see them now. Oh, yes, of course. He picked them up, and for a moment he looked unsure of himself. Something made me say, Are those the photographs for your book? Yes. Would you like to see them? He asked. There were several photographs of Spiro and the dolphin, and a wonderful one of them together. It was so good that I said, if I hadn't seen the dolphin myself, I wouldn't believe that this was real. Godfrey was interested. You say you've seen the dolphin? He asked. So I told them both about my morning adventure and about my meeting with Mr. Gale's son. Max Gale! Phillida cried. Lucy, you're not trying to tell me that Max Gale was running about in the woods with a gun, are you? Don't be silly. Well, he did say it wasn't him, I said. Anyway, he hadn't got the gun any longer, so I couldn't prove it. But I didn't believe him, and he was very rude. Yes, but it couldn't have been him, Phillida said. Probably not, agreed Godfrey. Phillida looked at him sharply. What is it? She asked. Nothing. But Phillida had understood. Her eyes opened wide and her face changed colour. Oh, no. But I suppose it could be. But Godfrey, that's awful. If he got a gun... Look, I said strongly, if you two are talking about Sir Julian Gale, I've never heard anything so silly. He wouldn't shoot a dolphin. Everybody who worked with him loved him. It's not in his character. He couldn't do it. Not unless he was drunk or had gone mad. I stopped. There was a silence that could be felt. Then Phillida turned to me. Look, you know that Julian Gale disappeared after he left the theatre? You know about the car accident 3 or 4 years ago when his wife and daughter were killed? Yes, of course. What happened? Was he ill? Yes, he was, I suppose. He had a nervous breakdown. He was in hospital for over a year. They say that he's better now, and he does go out sometimes to visit a few friends. But there's always someone with him. I said dully, You mean they have to watch him? You're trying to tell me that Julian Gale is... I paused. Why was it so difficult to put it into words? Oh, look, said Phillida. When I met him, he seemed perfectly normal. There's probably nothing wrong. He just wants peace and quiet. And Max Gale wants to be left alone to work. He's writing the music for a film of The Tempest. That's probably why young Adoni guards the place. Young who? I said. Adoni, the gardener. She turned to Godfrey then and said something about Adoni. He had been a close friend of Spiro. Phillida added something about Adoni, Miranda, and a dowry. Suddenly, Godfrey Manning said, I must get back home, in case anyone phones with some news. By the way, Phil, when is Leo coming over? I'm not sure, but certainly for Easter, with the children. Godfrey said goodbye and left. Phillida and I sat in silence until the sound of his car was lost in the distance. Come on then. Where's lunch? I said. I'm hungry. As I followed Phillida out of the room, I thought that the Gales probably knew about Spiro by now. I had seen Maria and Miranda when they left the house. They had taken the path that led only to the empty bay or to the Castello dei Fiori.